For 15 years, the rancher ignored a strange mound in the backyard until he dug and called the police. John Miller walked across the farmyard with the weight of 15 years of loneliness on his shoulders. Ever since his wife Catherine had vanished without a trace, he had become a bitter man who lived only to tend to the cattle and crops in rural Montana. On that September morning, he stopped before the small mound of earth that had always been there near the main barn. For years, John simply walked around that little hill that seemed out of place, as if something were buried beneath it. But this time, a strange restlessness came over him. "Enough pretending you don't exist," he murmured, grabbing a shovel leaning against the barn wall. The first few shovelfuls revealed that the soil was looser than normal. John dug with growing determination, as if that hole could swallow all his accumulated frustration. When the shovel hit something hard, his heart raced. It was a metal box, the size of a small suitcase. John's trembling hands wiped the dirt stuck to the surface, revealing that there was no rust. It hadn't been there long, or at least it had been very well protected. "My God," he whispered, carrying the box to the house's porch. The box wasn't locked. When John opened the lid, his eyes widened. Inside was a stack of papers, some old photos, and a letter with his name written in handwriting he knew very well. It was Catherine's writing. With trembling fingers, John opened the letter. The first lines made his legs buckle, forcing him to sit in the rocking chair where he used to spend his afternoons. "My dear John, if you're reading this, it means you finally decided to dig up that mound. I knew one day your curiosity would win out. I need to tell you the truth about my disappearance, even if it means breaking your heart one more time." John read and reread that sentence several times before continuing. Catherine hadn't left of her own free will. She had discovered something terrible about his family, something his own brother Robert had done to steal the inheritance that belonged to both of them. According to the letter, Catherine had found forged documents that proved how Robert had manipulated the division of assets left by John's father. When she confronted her brother-in-law, he not only confessed to the theft, but revealed an even more devastating secret. John was not the biological son of the man he had always called father. The letter went on to explain that his mother, Margaret, now deceased, had had a relationship with the town veterinarian Dr. Henry, resulting in John's pregnancy. Robert had known this for years and used this information to blackmail Catherine. "If you tell John about the documents, I'll tell him about his real father. You know my brother. He'll never get over finding out he idolized a man who wasn't even his father," Robert had said, according to Catherine's account. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out now continuing. Catherine's dilemma had been impossible. Revealing the financial betrayal would also mean destroying the image John had of his father. She knew her husband too well to know that this revelation would shatter him inside, so she had accepted Robert's blackmail. She disappeared on purpose, letting John believe she had run off with another man. It was better for him to hate her than to discover truth that could destroy everything he had always believed in. But Catherine hadn't simply left. The letter revealed that she had continued living in the area, in a neighboring town, always watching from afar how John was handling everything. There was even a secret bank account, where she deposited money monthly, imagining that one day she could return to her husband everything that Robert had stolen. John Miller dropped the letter and ran to the telephone. His hands were shaking so much that he dialed wrong 3 times before managing to call the local authorities. He wasn't quite sure what to say, only that he had found something important that needed to be investigated. 2 hours later, 3 municipal guards arrived at the farm. John explained about his wife's disappearance and the discovery of the box. The documents inside appeared to be evidence of fraud, something that needed to be carefully analyzed. "Mr. Miller, these are very serious accusations," said the oldest guard, flipping through the papers. "We'll need to take everything for analysis and probably question your brother as well." That same afternoon, Robert showed up at the farm. It had been 15 years since the brothers had barely spoken, ever since John had blamed him for Catherine's disappearance. Robert had always insisted he knew nothing, that Catherine had simply grown tired of life in the country. "What happened here? I saw the guards leaving," asked Robert, trying to sound casual. John showed him the letter. He watched as his brother's face grew paler with each line he read. When Robert finished reading, he was silent for long minutes. "She really wrote this," he murmured. "Robert, tell me this isn't true," John pleaded. "Tell me our Catherine didn't sacrifice her life to protect me from a lie of yours." Robert sat down heavily on the porch. For a moment, he seemed a much older man than he really was. "I thought it was for the best," he whispered. "Dad always treated you as his favorite son, even knowing the truth about your origin. He made me promise I would never tell. He said he loved you like a true son, and that was all that mattered. But you used that to blackmail my wife? When I found out she had discovered the documents, I panicked. I had already spent some of the money, John. I was in debt. I thought if she told, you would never forgive me and I would lose everything." John felt as if the ground was opening beneath his feet. 15 years of loneliness. 15 years believing he had been abandoned by the woman he loved, when in truth she had sacrificed herself to protect him. "Where is she, Robert? Where is my Catherine?" "I don't know, I swear. After she left, I never had contact again. I thought she had really gone far away, started a new life." John spent the rest of the day rereading the letter, discovering details he had missed the first time. Catherine mentioned an account at the bank in the neighboring town, registered under her maiden name. She also spoke of someone who had helped her settle there. The next day, John went to the bank. The manager confirmed the account existed, and after verifying the documents from the letter, revealed that a considerable sum had been deposited over the years. Along with the money, they found more letters Catherine had left, one for each year she had been away. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like, and especially to subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. John read all the letters that same afternoon, sitting on a bench in the central square. Each one recounted how Catherine had watched the farm's progress from afar, how she worried about his health, how she missed every detail of the life they had built together. One of the more recent letters mentioned she was working as a seamstress in a small shop, using a fake name. John noted all the details and began his search. The shop was only 40 kilometers from the farm. When John arrived there, the shop owner, a lady named Mrs. Jenkins, recognized him immediately. "You're Susan's husband, aren't you?" she asked, using the fake name Catherine had adopted. "Where is she?" John asked, almost breathless. Mrs. Jenkins took him to the back of the store, where she served him a strong coffee before telling him everything. "Susan worked here for almost 10 years. She was the most dedicated employee I ever had. But about 5 years ago, she started forgetting simple things. At first, I thought it was just distraction, but it got worse." John felt his heart tighten. She was always talking about her husband, the ranch, how much she missed it all. She showed a photo of his that she carried in her wallet. She said that one day she would go back home when she was sure she wouldn't cause any more problems. "Where is she now?" "At Sunrise Senior Living here in town. The disease has progressed, John. Most days she doesn't even recognize me, and I saw her every day." John drove to the senior living home with tears in his eyes. When he got there, he explained the situation to the director, showing the documents that proved his marriage to Catherine. "She talks a lot about a John," said the nurse who took care of her. "On her good days, she tells stories about a ranch, about a man she loved very much." Catherine was sitting in a rocking chair in the home's inner garden. At 68, she looked older than she was. Her hair was completely white and a lost look dominated her face that once radiated joy. John approached slowly, as if she were a bird that might fly away at any moment. "Catherine, it's me, John." She looked at him without initial recognition, but when he sat beside her and took her hand, something changed in her gaze. "John?" she murmured, as if waking from a deep dream. "It's me, my love. I've come to take you home." Catherine began to cry, holding his hand tightly. "I wanted to go back home. I always wanted to go back. But I was afraid you wouldn't forgive me." "Forgive you? Catherine, you saved our family. You sacrificed everything to protect me." They spent hours talking. Catherine had moments of lucidity mixed with confusion, but whenever she looked at John, a sweet smile appeared on her face. The director of the home explained that Catherine could go back home as long as she had proper care. John didn't hesitate. He would hire whoever was needed to take care of his wife, but she would go back to where she always belonged. Meanwhile, the local authorities summoned Robert to give explanations about the documents that were found. He confessed everything, even showing where he had hidden part of the money he had stolen over the years. "John, I know I can't undo what I did," said Robert during a meeting at John's house 2 weeks later. "But I want to give it all back. The money, the part of the ranch that should be yours, everything." John looked at his younger brother. Robert seemed to have aged 10 years in just a few days. The weight of the guilt he had carried for so long had finally taken its toll. "It's not just about the money, Robert. You destroyed 15 years of my life with Catherine. 15 years we will never get back. I know, and I will carry that for the rest of my life." But John also thought about Catherine's letter, where she wrote about forgiveness and how family is too important to be destroyed by past mistakes. "We will need to rebuild everything, Robert, slowly, with a lot of hard work. But Catherine always said that family is family, no matter what happens." Robert cried that day. They were the first sincere tears John had seen from his brother since childhood. The revelation about his biological father still needed to be processed. John decided to look for Dr. Henry, who was now 83 years old and living retired in town. The meeting took place at the simple house of the former veterinarian. Henry received him with eyes full of tears. "I always knew that one day you would find out," said the old man. "Your mother made me promise I'd never tell, but I've always followed your life from afar." "Are you my real father?" "Biologically, yes, but I wasn't the one who raised you, who taught you how to be a man. Your creative father did that, and he did a wonderful job." Henry showed John a box full of clippings from the local newspaper, photos of the ranch taken from a distance, and even some documents about the property's development over the years. "I've always been proud of you, John, even if I couldn't show it." This revelation, which had haunted John's fears, turned out to be less devastating than he had imagined. The man who raised him would always be his true father. But discovering there was another man who had always cared about him brought an unexpected comfort. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Catherine returned to the ranch a week later. John had prepared their room with old photos, things she had always liked, and even the flowers she used to plant in the garden. On good days, they would talk for hours about the 15 lost years. Catherine told him about the lonely life she had led, always waiting for an opportunity to come home. John talked about how the ranch had grown, about the improvements he had made, thinking of the day she would return. "I always knew you'd come back," John lied, holding her hand. "No, you didn't," Catherine replied in one of her moments of clarity. "But you never stopped loving me. I felt that, even from afar." The couple's daughter, Jennifer, who was now 35 and lived in the state capital, came home as soon as she heard about her mother's return. The reunion was both emotional and painful. "Mom, why didn't you come to me?" Jennifer cried. "I could have helped. I could have done something. My dear, you had your own life to live. I couldn't burden you with my problems." Jennifer had grown up believing her mother had abandoned them. Discovering the truth made her furious with her Uncle Robert, but also relieved to finally understand she had never been rejected. During one of the afternoons when the whole family was gathered on the porch, a strong storm hit the area. The wind knocked down some trees and damaged part of the roof of the main barn. John, Robert, and Jennifer rushed to save the animals that were sheltering inside. In the middle of the commotion, a loose beam fell, blocking the exit and trapping the two brothers inside the barn. "John! Robert!" Jennifer shouted from outside. Inside the barn, with rainwater coming in through the damaged roof and the space getting smaller, the brothers were forced to work together to find a way out. "Remember when we were kids and got stuck in the basement during storms?" Robert asked as they tried to move the beam. "I remember. You always protected me from the thunder. And you always shared your food with me when Dad gave you more." Working side by side, remembering simpler times, the two managed to move some equipment and create an alternate path to get out. When they finally emerged from the barn, soaked and exhausted, they instinctively hugged. It was the first sincere hug between them in decades. "I almost lost my brother today," John said. I don't want to waste any more time fighting with you. John, I'm so sorry for everything. If I could go back in time. We can't go back, but we can move forward. Catherine, who had watched the rescue from the window, smiled. Even with her mental confusion, she understood that her family was coming back together. Dr. Henry began visiting the ranch regularly. Initially, John felt strange about his biological father's presence, but gradually developed genuine affection for the elderly man. He has his hands, Catherine remarked one day, watching John and Henry fixing a fence together. It was true. There were small gestures, mannerisms that John had inherited and never noticed, but that didn't diminish the love he felt for the man who raised him. Robert began the process of returning the stolen assets. He sold his properties in the city and returned to John not only what he had stolen, but also the accumulated interest over the years. "I don't want your money to make myself feel better," John said. "I want it because Catherine always dreamed of expanding the organic garden. Now I can make that dream come true for her." Catherine's garden became a family project. Jennifer came on weekends to help. Robert contributed with manual labor, and even Henry offered knowledge about medicinal plants. Catherine, on her good days, supervised everything from the rocking chair that John had placed in the middle of the garden. She could no longer work physically, but her presence there seemed to bless every plant that grew. "John," she said one afternoon, holding an old photo of the couple, "do you think we made the right choice?" "What choice, my love?" "Leaving to protect you. Was all that suffering worth it?" John thought carefully before answering. 15 lost years, a family almost destroyed, secrets that corrupted relationships for decades. "I don't know if it was the right choice, Catherine, but it was made with love, and in the end, love always finds a way to fix things." The closest neighbor, Mrs. Wilson, revealed that she had always known where Catherine was. She had helped in the beginning, bringing news about the family and even some hidden photos. "Why did you never tell me?" John asked. "Because Catherine made me swear not to tell until she herself decided to return. She was always waiting for the right moment." "And what would be the right moment?" "I think when she was sure you could forgive her for leaving." John realized that Catherine had carried the guilt all this time, imagining that he hated her for abandoning him. It had never occurred to her that John could understand her reasons. The documents found in the box revealed other family secrets. John's father had left specific instructions on how to handle the revelation of paternity, should it ever come to light. "If my son ever discovers the truth about his origin, I want him to know that it never changed my love for him. I chose to raise him as my son because he was always my son in my heart." "Biology is just a detail," John cried, reading those words. The man who raised him had thought of everything, had prepared to protect his son even after his own departure. Henry was moved to learn of these instructions. "Your creative father was a very wise man. He always knew you might discover the truth, and he prepared so it wouldn't hurt you." During a family gathering, John made an important decision. "I want you all to know that, regardless of what we discovered, you are my family. Robert, you are my brother. Henry, you are my father. Catherine, you are my love. And Jennifer, you are my daughter. None of this changes because of papers or secrets." It was Jennifer who suggested creating a new family tradition. "Why don't we bury a new time capsule? With photos of all of us now, letters of forgiveness and promises for the future." The idea delighted everyone. Each family member wrote a letter to be opened in 10 years. John wrote about how love can overcome any secret. Catherine, on one of her lucid days, wrote about the importance of trusting the people we love. Robert wrote a request for forgiveness that extended to the family's future generations. Jennifer promised never to let secrets divide the family again. Henry wrote about his gratitude for finally being able to officially be part of his son's life. In the spot where the mysterious elevation once stood, they planted a mango tree. John specifically chose this tree because Catherine always said she wanted good shade someday to place the rocking chair in the backyard. "When this tree grows, we'll have many picnics under it," John promised, holding Catherine's hand. "And our grandchildren will play in its shade," Catherine replied, smiling. The ranch, which for 15 years had been a place of loneliness and bitterness, came back to life. Jennifer began bringing her children to spend time with their grandparents. Robert moved into a small house on the property, helping with the daily chores. Henry became the grandfather the children never had. He taught them about animals, told stories from his time as a veterinarian, and always had candies in his pocket to hand out. Catherine still had difficult days, but the presence of family and the familiar environment helped with her stability. On good days, she cooked old recipes and told stories to her grandchildren. On bad days, she would just smile when she saw John approaching. "You know what I miss the most?" she asked one afternoon. "What, my love?" "The noise of our full house. Now it's noisy again." John realized it was true. The house was always filled with children's laughter, kitchen conversations, and the sound of people who care about each other. One afternoon, while the whole family was gathered on the porch, John looked around and felt a peace he hadn't experienced in decades. "Catherine," he said, "I think we made it." "Made what?" "We managed to be a real family again." Catherine smiled and squeezed his hand. "We were always a family, John. We were just separated for a while." Robert, who was listening to the conversation, approached. "John, can I ask you a question?" "Of course. Do you really forgive me, or are you just trying to keep the peace?" John looked into his brother's eyes. There was a sincerity there he hadn't seen in a long time. "Robert, forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing not to let the past define our future. I forgive you because I want us to be brothers again, and I'll spend the rest of my life earning that forgiveness." That night, John couldn't sleep. He got up and went to the porch, observing the property under the moonlight. He could hear the sound of cattle in the pasture, the wind in the trees, and Catherine's calm breathing in the bedroom. For 15 years, he had lived believing he didn't deserve to be loved, that there was something wrong with him that had made his wife leave. Discovering the truth had freed him from a guilt he didn't even know he carried. Henry appeared on the porch, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Can't sleep either." "I was thinking about how things have changed," John replied, accepting the coffee. "You know, John, I always wanted to have conversations like this with you, father and son, talking about life." "Do you want me to call you father?" Henry smiled. "You already have a father, and he was a much better man than I could have been. But if you want to call me Henry, Dad, or just Henry, or even Grandpa Henry because of the children, I'll be happy." "I think I like Grandpa Henry." They stayed silent for a while, just enjoying each other's company. "Grandpa Henry," John said, testing the name. "Do you think Catherine will be okay?" "She's at home, surrounded by people who love her. There's no better medicine than that." In the following months, the ranch routine settled around caring for Catherine. John had learned to recognize the signs when she was having a difficult day and had adapted the entire house so she would feel safe and comfortable. Jennifer suggested they organize a party to celebrate their parents' anniversary, which would be in December. "You missed 15 anniversaries," she said. "How about we celebrate them all at once?" The party was small, just family and a few close neighbors. But it was one of the most moving celebrations John had ever experienced. Catherine was having a particularly good day and managed to dance an entire song with John. When the song ended, she kissed him and said, "It was worth waiting 15 years for this dance." During the party, Mrs. Wilson approached John. "You know, John, I've always admired how you managed this ranch all by yourself for so long, but seeing you like this together again, I realized the ranch was just waiting." "Waiting for what?" "Waiting for the family to come home." John looked around. Jennifer was helping Catherine cut the cake. Robert was playing with the grandchildren in the yard. Henry was telling stories to anyone who would listen. The house was full of life, love, and purpose. "You're right," he replied. It was waiting for everyone to come home. That night, after everyone had left, John and Catherine were alone on the porch. She was tired but happy. "John," she said, holding an old photo of the couple. "Yes, my love. Thank you for forgiving me. Catherine, you don't need forgiveness. You saved our family. But I left you alone for so long." John knelt in front of her chair, holding her hands. "Catherine, you never left me alone. You were here." He pointed to his heart. "You were here all along. And now you're here too, he pointed around. We're together again, and that's what matters. Catherine smiled through her tears. I love you, John Miller. And I love you, Catherine Miller, forever. End of story. So what did you think of this touching story, Gov? Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most, and whether you believe John made the right decisions. Your opinion is very important. Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other stories that will touch your heart.